If you've been working with Entity Framework and an entity data model, I think it's going to be helpful to have a basic understanding of how it's possible for Entity Framework to support the Code First workflow, which doesn't have a physical entity data model. Entity Framework's key pieces are the Entity Data Model, the Object Services API that helps you manage entities, and the Entity Client API, which provides the interaction with the database. If you've already been using Entity Framework, you've worked with a physical representation of the Entity Data Model in the form of the EDMX file and used the Entity Data Model Designer to visualize and to design it. At runtime, Entity Framework reads that EDMX file's XML and creates an in-memory representation of the model using classes from the metadata namespace. It also creates in-memory objects to represent the additional metadata that describes how to get from the model to the database and back. Entity Framework uses this in-memory metadata to translate your queries into store queries and also to transfer database query results into your domain objects. The metadata is also used to translate updates into database commands like insert, update, and delete. With Code First, there's no physical model, no EDMX file, and therefore no XML to read when the application starts up. Instead, Code First reads your class definition files and creates that in-memory metadata directly from your classes. Sometimes your classes don't provide quite enough details for Entity Framework to build that metadata properly, especially when it comes to the details that show how to map back to the database. You can add configurations to your classes using data annotations or leveraging Code First Fluent API to provide any extra metadata for Entity Framework. We'll look more closely at both of these shortly. Now Code First has something to use for creating that in-memory metadata. It will read your classes and any configurations you provided to help. Once it has that in-memory structure, it's able to perform its functions just as it always has. It can also use that same in-memory metadata to create a database if you so choose.